Okay, so how's everybody? How is everybody with the snow? With the new weather? Very different from last week. Okay, so we're getting to our week 10. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about security. We're going to be doing some exercise about security, actually one exercise about security. You have done already some of that at home with bonus 9. So I'll be also covering a few of the questions as well. And we're going to be talking quite a lot about our projects. There are quite a few things that we need to put together. We need to create groups, and we're going to be doing that today. You're going to be selecting each group's topic as well. So we're going to be doing that towards the end of the day. So stick around if you want to select your topic. Okay, so let's talk about security here. Security within our MVC application. Okay, you have done parts from part 1 to part 6. You got an idea of what security entails. That's security that we're going to be covering today is basic security. We're not going to be talking about roles. We're going to be talking about whether or not someone has access to perform some actions or not. We don't check any further than that. We just say, hey, is the user logged in? If yes, they have access. If no, they don't. That's that simple. Either you are logged in or you are not logged in. If you are logged in, you have access. If you are not, you don't have. In 2 weeks, we're going to be talking more about how we can enhance that, how we can make this a little bit more comprehensive, a little bit more sophisticated, that we can create roles. But today, we're going to go and take a very simple approach. So, in an MVC application, what you're going to secure are controllers and actions. You're going to flag them. You're going to mark them as secured. You're going to mark them as the user needs to be logged in to be able to perform them. Okay? We're going to be also allowing the user to log in. So you're going to have a login view, a login screen, that the user will be able to enter username and password. Okay? We're going to be doing them today. What we're going to be covering can be found on chapter 12 of the book. Okay? That's the last chapter in the sports store sequence. Okay. You also have the playlist. You can download this PowerPoint, this PDF. That link will be active, and you can find the playlist. And you're going to have a look again at our MVC diagram. Okay. So, with what we're going to be discussing today, we pretty much involve all the basic elements, all the different components of our MVC application. We need routing because we're going to be dealing with login, logout. We're going to be dealing with different actions. Again, they depend on routing. We're going to create a new controller to be able to provide some basic functionality for our user, to be able to log in, to log out. Okay. We're going to be working a lot. You did a lot of that already as a new model. What have you created in the first 6 videos? What was the first element that you have created here in your model, in the application? Anyone for that? What was one of the new classes that you have added to the model? Identity. Identity. Unpack that a little bit more. tell me a little bit more about that.
Identity context.
Great. So we have created a new database context. Okay? This new database context is used because we are using a separate what? Database. We are using a separate database to manage our users, access that they have. We have a separate database. So for that, we need a separate context. Ederson, could we have done this with the same database? We could. It's just that the book follows this second database to show that MVC is quite flexible and you can have the same application connecting to multiple databases. But you could have done this within the same database. But again, the exercise, the book has chosen to create a separate database to manage users and access. Okay, so we have a new DB context. In terms of views, we're going to have a new login. We're going to be adding some security to the existing actions that we have. So again, all the different components will be touched once again. Okay, but we're gonna touch each one. I would say each one at a time. As you said, Sergio. First, we have created the new context, the new identity context. What is the context? The context, remember, is the bridge between the application and the database. Originally, we had the product database. We just had one context. Now, we have created a new context to be able to connect to the second one. So the same application has now two bridges to two different databases. Okay?
Context is a bridge. What is the immigration is?
Migrations? The migration is the set of scripts that create the database. So because first we need to create them, to create the database, then this will bridge to that database. But the database has to exist. So
once created, I don't need any more migration.
We don't, but here's the thing. If you come to modify the model, you're going to need to recreate it again. So you're right. Once it's created, you don't need them anymore. But you keep them there just in case you modify that. Because again, applications, as you're building them, they grow and they become more complex, more involving. So you may have the need to create more models, to modify existing models. If you have that, you're going to need to regenerate those migrations. But yes, at the end, those migrations classes is just supposed to be used once when we create the. I would not say once, because you may need to delete the database for some reason and recreate it. So again, don't get rid of them. My point is, don't get rid of them. Keep them around, because you may need to regenerate or you may need to create the database again. In the migration scripts will be used for that. Otherwise, you cannot create the database. How are you going to create the database if you need it again? Migration scripts.
But if I have a database with 10,000 products, I have 3 tables. After 5 years, I need to add one more table. How can I do? I run the migration again?
Yeah, so here's the thing. And actually, we're going to be talking about migrations in a second. When you run it initially, you create the initial migration, okay? The initial migration scripts. The initial one is based on whatever is there in your current models. In your current model, in your current DB context. If you come to make changes to that, what you can do is you generate the migrations again. But when I say generate again, actually what it does is it has the initial migration there. When you run it again, it creates a new set of scripts that will only perform the changes that you have performed, like adding a new table. So the second set of migration scripts will only have the additional action, additional step of creating the new table. So now we have two sets of scripts. When you run to update the database, it will run just the second one because the first one has already run. So I don't know if it answered your question. Maybe I
don't lost that data.
You don't. Now, you will only lose the data if you delete the database. But if you are just modifying something in your model, you regenerate the migration scripts. Actually, I really don't like the words regenerate because we are creating a new set that builds on top of the first one. So again, you have product in the first one, and then you decide to create orders. You generate the second set of migrations. The second set will only have the orders, no longer the products, because the product is already created. So when you run the update to the database, it will only add the additional table. It will not touch the products table. Make sense? It can be confusing, and we can very easily get lost there. Okay, so again, a new identity context, a new model there. I'm not going to run line by line here. You have done that during your exercise. I'm just going to brush through this. As you see, the application identity DB context, if you open this and you open the original DB context, they are very similar. Again, this is the bridge between the application and the new database that stores the identity information. Really, the bigger difference here between the original DB context and the new one is that this one here is inheriting from identity DB context. This is the name of the class that will make available to the application a database that has identity information. What does it mean, identity information? Well, it has usernames, it has roles, it has passwords, okay? So all of that is in this new database here that we are creating the database context. And again, database context, the bridge to a database. And this is our second context, okay? As usual, I have Padlet open there. So if you have questions that you want to voice, you can. Tiago, anything?
I don't know if you're going to explain
sure.
later, but what is identity user I could get, what it means, but and identity role?
Okay, I'll be mentioning that. Identity role we will focus on that in 2 weeks because as I mentioned today is about is the user logged in, yes or no? If yes, they have access. If no, they don't have. Role is when we involve, oh, are you an admin? Are you a manager? Are you an editor? You can come up with your own roles. Role is think of a system that we have users. So users are each one of us. I mean, think of a Centennial. Each one of us is a user in the system. But besides me being a user, I'm a faculty user. You are a student user. So those are roles. So we can also, in our application, create roles, create different, not even levels, but different types of user. So we have users and we have groups of users that we call roles. So that's what role is, and we're going to be exploring that in 2 weeks, okay? Okay, with a new DB context, you have also what? What is that? A new connection string. So we are using the same, what is the name of the file that we have that? It's the .json. What is the name again? Come on. App settings. So app settings.json. So what we have added here, we have added a second set of a second entry to store the database. You see, it's the same string with the exception of the database. Here we have sports store, and here we have identity. Okay, so that's a new database. Okay, and we have a second connection here. So again, just mapping this back. we have the identity DB context, which is the bridge, and we also have the location, the address of the database. This is the address, okay? So with the bridge, and now the bridge can reach to that database because it can reach the string via what? Via our configuration. Configure services, where is that method located? Which class? So startup class. So now our startup class, we not only have to add the namespace called Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.Identity, because now we are bringing users, roles, access, login to our application. So we need to use that namespace. This line here, again, very similar to the line that we had to connect to the product database. This line here connects our DB context to the database via this connection string. Again, it reads this line. What this line is doing is reading the entry from the configuration file, and now our app identity DB context knows where to find the database because it has that whole path there. Okay, so this is what it's, this line, the goal of this line is to say, hey, DB identity DB context, here is where the database is located. Go and do whatever you need to do there. Okay, so that's what this does. The second line, and again, this is, I'm calling second line just because this could be going on here. So the first one, the second one. The second one, what we are doing is we are adding identity service to our application. Okay, we are saying that, okay, use identity service, use identity. Again, this comes from this namespace. And use this class here that I'm calling, it's the name, this class comes from this namespace. Use this class as your user. So our user information will be retrieved, will be not stored, but we're going to be using this class to be able to get username, to be able to get email address, okay, to be able to get the user information. This class here, this one here, that's the one, Thiago, that you mentioned, identity role. We're not going to explore this much today, but we're going to explore that in 2 weeks. This is what you can use to create different roles, different user access level for different users in your application. You can say, Ederson is part of, I know, it's just a regular user, but John is an admin of the system. So again, we can use this to do that, but not today. Today, we're going to just be able to say, is the person logged in, yes or no? That's really what we're going to be doing. The other thing that this does is that it ties the identity services. And again, when I say identity service, I'm talking about users, I'm talking about login, I'm talking about passwords. It ties that back to our application app identity DB context, this guy here. So what this is doing is, whenever I need to get username, update user, delete user, validate passwords, it knows where to find the data, because now the identity service is tied to our bridge, to our application bridge, to our application app identity DB context. Again, the bridge to the database. Why we need the bridge? Because we need to be able to get user information, to be able to, you also be able to update user, delete user, create user. So again, we are just adding yet another service to our application. Remember, everything in the .NET Core, in MVC, is all by adding services. We import a namespace, and we say, hey, I want to use now identity. I want my system to have access to users, to passwords, to logins, okay? Great, okay. Any questions? Again, about specifics of what is this doing, or what is this exactly doing? Well, you can find that on MSDN. I mean, you can just click there and find more information about that. But again, this is what you have to do to make sure that you have identity available to your application, okay? And under the configure, still in the startup, you have added the app use authentication. If you don't add that, you won't be able to log in to the system, okay? Sometimes I caught myself doing that quite a lot. I'm trying to add some users to the system, to add something in a new application, and I forgot to add this line of code. And it doesn't connect, it doesn't allow me to log in because I was missing this line of code. So in the configure, we also have to add the use authentication to make sure that the application, well, knows that we will require authentication in our system as well, okay? As we did with MVC, with static files, okay? Just one more line to be able to use the service. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the migration scripts. Remember, we have two different types of commands. Let's call them commands. So those are command lines, commands. And the first one, what this does. What is it that this one does? The first one. Forget about this other part. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But just want to recap, what is this doing?
Adding the migration file.
It's
Initial in this case.
Yep, so this case here, we are calling it initial. Again, what is this doing when we call the migration command here?
Migrating the data into the database.
It doesn't do that yet. That's actually what this will be doing. So this part here, it creates the initial files, the migration files. It creates a set of files that then we can use those files to create the database, to create the tables. So again, the first one only generates files in our project. That's what it does. It does not create the database. Now, the second one will read what the first one did and will perform the operations. So one creates, the other one applies. That's really it. This one creates the scripts based on what? Based on your models, based on what you have added to the context, to the DB context, okay? In our case, initially, we had products there. So the initial scripts, they were supposed to create a new table called products, which has a bunch of fields. This one here, what it will do is, it will read the DB context class and will create the scripts according to that. Because this is an identity DB context, it will create a series of scripts to create a user table, a rows table, a table that has passwords, a table that has email address, first name. I don't know if it has first name and last name, but I know that email address, username. Okay, so this creates the scripts, this applies the script, okay? The reason why we have them separate, I would assume, because that's me speculating, is that you can move the code to another location, and you may just want to update to create a database. Maybe you have this already created and you don't need to run it again, okay? You don't need to recreate, you just need to recreate the database if you are moving to a live site, to a live server, okay? Now, there is one aspect here that is different from what you have seen before, initially. The command became a little bit more complicated. What is it that seems a little bit different from what you have seen before? Can you identify there? We specify the context. Okay. Why is that? I mean, any guesses?
Because we have multiple databases.
Exactly. So, because we have multiple contexts, we have this one here, and we have the application DB context. We have two contexts now. So, if we say run the migrations, the initial migrations, well, which context are you talking about? Are you talking about the application DB context or the app identity DB context? So once you have at least two contexts, then you have to specify this parameter. This is a parameter to this comment. You have to specify this parameter to say, hey, I'm talking about this context here. I'm talking about this context, not the other one. So you have to specify which context you are talking about when you run the first, when you run the second one. You're going to be doing that quite a lot during assignment 3, during your project as well. You're going to be making changes to models, change to the database. And again, it's important that you have this, in a way, well understood, so you don't get yourself in a situation that, oh, the application is not running and I'm getting this error. So again, it's good to have this, a clear picture of this. Any questions about the commands? I'm going to give you next an alternative to that, but any questions so far?
Well, we didn't do the data update to the master.
Okay, that's a good point. Actually, when I was walking you through, I asked you to do that, but in the video, you didn't have to do that because, and I'm gonna open that here. I'm gonna open the source code because in our seed data, we had this line. This line, it's running the migration script for us. So this line there is doing this part here. Not with this context, but with this is with the application DB context. So this line is doing that for us. It's running the migration script for us. It's running this for us. That's why we didn't have to do that much. But I can tell you this, for the application identity DB context, you have to, because the seed data does not have a migration like that. So for this context, you have to run both of them manually. Okay? Otherwise, you will not get your database created. Okay? But that's a good point. An alternative way, you can run the same, you can get the same result with a similar command, but this time around from within Visual Studio. So you can run this one here to create the migration scripts, and this one here to update the database. But now, what you can do, you can run that from the Package Manager console. Inside Visual Studio, you can just go to View, Other Windows, and then see this one here, Package Manager console. By the way, I mean, there are so many different options here. So again, pay close attention to this. You can still use the command line, no problem, that's fine. But I find that this is, in a way, a little bit easier because you don't have to open the command line. You can just open that window here, and here's the window. I'm gonna resize it a little bit here. So as you can see, it has a prompt. I'm gonna put it all the way up just so you can visualize it a little bit better. It has a prompt here, and you can just put that command right here. So instead of opening the command line, you can just run.
I don't need path.
Sorry?
I don't need the
You don't
path.
need, because this is already running in the context of this solution, of this project here. I'll give you an example here. Well, the second one will create the database. So even though the database is already created, but I'm going to delete the database, I'm going to run this again. I'm just going to go to, how can I delete the database?
View.
Okay, view, SQL Server, Object Explorer. And then we go to LocalDB. And then I'm going to go to databases. And I can delete my entity database. I'm going to keep Sports Store. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste that line, this line here, that creates the database. I'm going to paste here in my command line. And it's already running there. The same output that it was showing under the command line, it will show us here as well. So it's running the scripts, it's creating the databases, the fields, the indexes, and if you scroll up, see there's no red marks here. And if I refresh the databases, we have it back. We have the database back with its tables. Look at the tables here. We have users, we have logins, we have rows. Again, all tables related to security using the identity framework from .NET Core. Okay, so again, just another option for you. You can use one way or another way. It's really up to you. No right or wrong here. You just have to see that the name is slightly different. You still give the name of the migration script. You specify the context, not with dash context, but just with dash context and the name of the context in front of it. Okay. Okay. Okay, so we've created the database. We create the migration scripts to create the database. Now, we also have a seed data equivalent to what we had seed data for the product. We have a seed data for the identity. We are creating here manually a new user. Why is it that we are doing that? Well, it makes things easier for us to test, but let me give this example here. Let's say that you have an interface that allows you to create users. But what if this interface is protected and only users that are logged in will have access to that? So how can you reach a feature to allow you to create users if it's blocked and only accessible to users? You need to have your first user. So you can create your first user by using something like a class like that, an identity seed data, using a constant here to set the name of the admin user, the passwords, and I'm just going to briefly mention a few things about what's going on here. I'll be talking a little bit more about user manager in a bit, but user manager is the user manager here with the type identity user is the class that we're going to be using to create, update, delete users, okay? And search as well. Like what this code is doing, it's giving me a user manager. I'm trying to find, I'm checking if the admin user is already there. Then what? I'll explain in a second the await here, but let's just figure out this part here. So I'm trying to return a user based on this name. What is this test about? What is this if doing there? What's that? if user equals to null,
So if the user doesn't exist, then create a new.
that's it. That's it. So if the user does not exist here, so we try to find, if it doesn't exist, create a new user, create a new user object, and then use create async to save that user in the database. This is the user, this is the password. You're gonna see that passwords are dealt usually in a separate way. As you can see here, the password is not part of the user class. It's a separate thing. You're gonna see that a little bit more, but here I try to find, if it does exist, create it. So it creates the admin user just the first time that it runs. The second time, it will find, and it will skip this creating part. It's like what we had in the first script that in the first seed data that we checked if the database is empty. If it's not empty, create the records. If it's empty, create the records. If it's not, skip. The same thing as doing here. If the user is already there, don't create it again. That's it. You're going to be using something just like that for your assignment. Okay, your assignment is that? No, for the project. Again, we're going to be talking about projects in today. Today we're going to be talking about that. Okay.
So this is like a design pattern that you can use to update that database in general.
You can. I wouldn't say that it's a design pattern. I wouldn't go that far. It's just a static class, a very simple class, where
Like the finding it, if it doesn't find anything, you create it.
yeah, you can consider that. It's a way to, you saw the same pattern in the product data. So yes, you're right. It's the same type of approach on both cases. Okay. Now, this is one thing that you're going to see quite a lot here. You're going to see a lot of this await and async here. Await and async. Because all methods that deal with user creation, updating, deleting, finding, they are all asynchronous methods. So with asynchronous methods, we have to use the await keyword. Not only that, but the methods that calls, the methods, in our case, ensure populated, that uses a method that is asynchronous, it has to be declared asynchronous as well. If I get rid of this async here, I'm going to get an error because I'm trying to use an asynchronous method inside a non-asynchronous method. So an asynchronous method can only be used inside of another asynchronous method. Okay? What is asynchronous as well? Again, we saw that a little bit when we were dealing with partial views. Partial views, we had a more efficient way to load a partial view that would not block resources in the system. So this is the same kind of approach, that this command gets triggered in memory and resources become available to other parts of the system. Now, once this comes back, the code continues from here. This code still stops here. However, it doesn't hold the system resources because of that. It triggers a thread. When this thread is done, comes back here and finishes the process. But the other parts of the system, the resources are free to be used there. So again, asynchronous methods are more efficient. And you're going to be seeing this more and more as we progress today. You're going to see more and more of that because, as I said, when you're using user manager, most of the methods from the user manager, creating a new user, finding a new user, updating a user, they are all asynchronous methods. Okay? Okay, so let me see here what we have. Secure, let me just check. Okay, before I go through some demonstrations here, let's take a few minutes to look at some of the questions that you have posted, because again, so far what I went through here, you should have gone through that already. So I'm just going to open a few of the questions here that have been submitted, and I try to make them anonymous so your names will not be there. Okay, so let's see. And again, hopefully some of them or most of them will have been addressed. Could you please elaborate more about async and await and async? I hope that I did that. If you still have any questions about that, ask me. And again, we're going to be seeing that more and more, so I'll be revisiting that, okay? To create more admin role and such, do you just have to put more? Yes, yes. So again, roles specifically, we're going to be talking about that in 2 weeks, but you are correct. If we need not only to create users, but to create roles and assign roles to users, yes, we just need to make our identity seeds a little bit more elaborated. And you're going to see how we do that. Actually, the last video of this series of chapter 12, I go through exactly that. It's a bit long video. It's about 18 minutes, and it goes through that. So again, if you want to check that out there, just go there, and you're going to see exactly how you can create roles. You can assign roles to users, okay? But we're going to be talking about that later. Not later today, but another day in the near future. So is there a better way to hide valuable data from a regular user? Okay, so we're gonna be seeing today 2 ways to hide information. One is we're going to be hiding controllers, entire controllers. We're going to be hiding them. 2, we're going to be hiding actions. So inside a controller, we may have the controller open, but some of the actions in those controllers, they might be restricted to only authorized users. And we can also go one extra level, which is we can go to the view and we can say, okay, this information here in my view is restricted to users that are validated, that have access. We're going to see how we can do that today as well, a little bit later today, but again, we're going to see that today. Very simple method that we use in our views to be able to check that and give access or not to things depending on if the user is logged in or not logged in. Again, if you have follow-ups on those questions, let me know. You can post on Padlet, you can, again, please follow up. Okay. More information about token providers. Token providers, well, I believe that this might be related to, let's see here. Maybe to this part here, this token provider here. To be quite honest, I don't have much more information on top of my head about that. The best way that if you really want to find more information about that is to put that on Microsoft's website. And again, you can have the entire description of what that method is doing exactly. I'm quite sure that it's related to tokens about passwords, about protection. But yeah, you can find more information there. Okay. Where is identity user stored? Okay, identity user is stored in the database right here. See, in this table, ASP.NET users. So did I run this already? Because, let me see here. Let me run it once because we just created this again. Okay, so by doing that, we have run our identity seed data. If I go back here, I would expect to have the admin user created. You see? It's right here. So that's where the user information is stored. Okay? So we have well, we don't have emails because we didn't set that. Password is here, but of course password is encrypted there. Don't expect to see the exact password, okay? Because it's encrypted. Okay, how async and find async works. I've mentioned that. So again, any method that is asynchronous needs the keyword await, the special keyword, and the method that this is inside also needs the keyword asynchronous. Again, asynchronous methods is about creating a new thread in memory and releasing resources for the application to be used for something else. It does need to be waiting forever to get this back, okay? It's about efficiency. Okay, let me see if I open another one here. Okay, is the namespace, in the namespace, why we add .identity and .identity and framework separately? Okay, let me see here. Let me see if I find out what this is about. I'm gonna go here to startup to see if it's there. Well, let me see. Identity and identity framework. DB context, okay, so.
If you import the identity with.
Yeah, those are.
The framework is already included.
Yeah, you mean this is already there?
Yes.
Is it?
After identity.
Everything will be there, right, after identity?
You see, don't fool yourselves by, because again, those are, namespace is just saying that this is a library that has a bunch of things inside. It does mean that if it was like that, if it would be real like that, I could just say use Microsoft.
So,
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden everything is there? Not really. So again, it doesn't have this well, there is some level of hierarchy here, but not as you may think, no?
If I put dot.
asterisk.
Asterisk?
Yes.
I don't think that is there the syntax?
Does it work?
Yeah, it does. Here? I don't think it does.
No.
I don't think it has this syntax. Okay?
Maybe the next version.
Maybe suggest there. Thumbs up on that suggestion there. Please explain the change we are making on the .json file. Okay, so I would assume that, let me see here, .json file. I would assume that this is the second connection string. Okay, so again, the change that we did here is just to add a new connection string. The only difference is really just a database name. One is identity, the other one is support store. But it's the same, it looks the same. But of course, it has to have a different key here. Because otherwise, they cannot have the same name, okay? Okay, let's do this. 5 minutes, we come back, we carry on. Quick break.
E a gente só fez a migração de produtos e orders. Mas eu fui olhar lá e tem uma tabela de cart line. Onde no código que ele criou essa tabela de
Ok,
cart
so,
line?
deixa eu ver aqui, peraí. Cart line, por causa disso aqui. Modos. Okay, let me see your order. It's because of this. This collection here, this makes it become a table there, this collection there. So you may want to use something similar to.
To put the review.
Yes.
Instead
Yes.
of creating.
I mean, there are different ways to skin the scats, but this is one. So, and again, it creates beautifully the other table, So we are saying that we want a collection of lines. What is the type of lines? Cart line. What is the type of reviews?
Reviews.
Review. So I collection of review. That will flag, and the entity framework will create a separate table.
And then in the class review, do I need to put a review ID and a product ID, or it does that relationship automatically?
I'm quite sure that this will, not quite sure. I'm sure that this will create the relationship for you. I think I've used that before, but yeah, that could solve what you were trying to do before.
All right, I'll try it out. Thank you.
No problem. Yeah.
For the assignment 3, for the authorization, we have to. No, it's not authorization. It's the.
For assignment, it's for the database.
No,
it's for the CRUD.
Yeah, for the CRUD, we have to create other controller.
Yep.
Other admin controller.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Yes.
key.
In English. I'm recording this. Again,
Here.
the other users, well, the other students.
I have not responding, but here I have this view, recipe name.
Okay.
I put the model review from here. Review. I'm calling the recipe name using view bag. So
Okay, so did you set it? Did you set in the controller?
I said
You set in the controller, okay?
yes.
Okay,
View bag, it's okay.
okay.
When I receive the recipe in this view, I have this input, recipe ID. I create inside my review, I have
A recipe ID.
Yes.
Okay.
Match.
Okay, match. But my question is, when you call this view, did you send a model to it or you just called it? Show me the controller, yeah. And show me where you call this.
This I can open here. Super controller. Here. I get.
Okay. So you are declaring here. That's fine. You are setting. Okay, great. I like that. Okay, so now you're okay. Great. So you are doing what I was thinking here. Okay, you are creating the review and you are setting the review ID. Great.
Yeah.
Is there a problem? Is there?
Yeah, I have problem. When I get, it's okay. Everything is perfect. But when I post
Yep.
this object here, I try to get here.
Yep.
It's empty. It's no.
Completely
Completely no.
Can you show me again the view, the recipe view? Okay, control. Okay. So I get it. You need to use for the input. You need to use ASP4 instead of value.
Here?
Yes, use ASP4. ASP4 equals to, and then this, see, get rid of name here. Yeah, get recipe ID, ASP4 becomes recipe ID, so get rid of this part here, yeah, get rid of, so this becomes recipe ID, and get rid of that over there. And again, I don't know if this will solve, but this is the way that you're going to be doing model binding, because what you did before, this recipe ID was not going directly to the review. It wasn't doing that because there's no binding. This, when you use ASP4, this is what guarantees the binding with the review.
Losing the value.
You are losing the value. Yes. Now give it a try. Put a breakpoint. Go back to the controller. Put a breakpoint right there in the post. In the next line. Yeah. The next line. Yeah. Yeah. Give it a try. Run it.
When I bought this computer, I forgot about this problem. ADD.
Oh,
So
it's a
worst.
hard drive.
Yeah,
It's a
I forgot about. I had to buy one with SSD. SSD.
solid state. A
Yes.
solid state.
Much better. Now I have a problem because my hard disk.
It goes all the way to the top.
Yes.
Give it a try. We're gonna have some exercise. I'll visit you if you get stuck again. Okay? Okay. So let's keep moving forward here. Let's go through. Actually, first let me show you what is it that we are trying to do here. So our end goal is this. I'm going to run this here. I just want to show you our end goal, what we are working towards. Okay, this is what we are trying to achieve. When we go to a place like to a view, like, not to a view, sorry, to an action in a controller like admin index, it's restricted, so the application doesn't allow us to go there, and it redirects to a login page. And then I can enter the admin user, the password, and I can click login, and I can see the list of products information. So now we are protecting this, okay? So this is what we are working towards. I'm gonna log out. Just wanted to mention. Now, what you have done so far was to see the data. What you're gonna start to do now is you're gonna create a new controller. We're gonna create a controller called, let me see here, how we're gonna call this. Actually, you know what, before we create the controller, let's flag the actions that we want to secure. We want to lock them down. Not only the actions, but the controller as well. So let's have a look at this. Let's go to our list, order controller.list. This is the action that gives me the list of products. Sorry, not the list of products. This is the action that gives me the list of orders in the system. Order controller.mark shipped. This is the action that allows me to mark an order as shipped. In the last one, we're gonna lock down the admin controller because, well, the admin of the site should be behind a login screen, okay? So let's lock them down. How do we do that? With that annotation. We just put that annotation. Let's go to the code here. So we're gonna go to our controller. The first one, order controller. Let's go there to order controller. And we're gonna say, for the list and marked shipped, so for the list, we're gonna say authorize. And it requires a new namespace. So you're gonna add that to the top, Microsoft.aspcore.authorization. So it's added up there. And we're gonna use the same annotation to flag the marked shipped. So you're gonna flag this as well. So after we do this, actually, let me show. I'm just gonna comment this out, and I want to show you this before. I'm gonna run, and I'm gonna try to access list without logging in. So I'm gonna run it here. Okay, so I'm gonna try here, admin. So this is the, sorry, not admin, this is the order. This is the order controller, so I'm gonna go order. Actually, let me open a new screen here. Sorry, not a new tab. I'm gonna go order dash list. I was using this before, and this is an order that I had used before. Let me just mark this as shipped, and let me get things straight out. So right now, I have no orders to be marked as shipped. I'm gonna create a new order here. I'm gonna say, okay, add to carts. Continue shopping. I'm gonna add a second one to carts. I'm gonna go and check out, okay? So this process will create a new order in our system. I'm just gonna say ship to 12 Main Street, and here it goes, and complete order. Okay, it's fine. Okay, so with that, now when I refresh the order list, I'm gonna see a new order that has not been shipped yet. So here's the order. Now, what I can do is I can click mark shipped, mark as shipped here. But before I do that, Now I'm going to close and I'm going to specify authorized on top of this action here. Right now, as you see, I don't have to log in to access this. But after I put this authorize in the list of orders, and I run this again, let's see what happens. So I'm going to go order. Now here's what we get. See, we try to go to that view, sorry, not view, action. We try to go to that controller in action, and it gives me a 404 error. It's telling me, hey, there's nothing like that. I mean, it's not that you don't have access to, it's just that, look at the URL. Look at what it's trying to do. It's trying to say, hey, go to the login action. But we don't have the login action yet. We don't have, just by looking at this URL here, what can you tell me about accounts? What is account? A controller. What is login? An action. Let's have a look at our solution here. Do you have an account controller? We don't. Well, we don't have an account controller. I mean, without an account controller, we cannot even imagine having a login action inside the controller because we don't have that. So, how come it's redirecting to that location there? How come? Where is this coming from? Well, this is coming from the identity, the security that we put in place. We said that, you know what? This list now is only visible to whoever is authorized because we use this. So we said authorize here. Now, it's not saying that you need to go to an account login. It's nowhere it's saying that. Well, this is a redirect by default. Actually, MVC, not MVC, the identity framework is doing that for us. It's saying, hey, if you flagged an action with authorize, you better have a controller called account and an action called login. Can you customize that? Yes. It does have to be account login. You can change that. You can call log me in. You can call another controller. But for the sake of where we are right now, let's use what the framework is asking for us. It's asking that we create a controller called account. We create an action called login to be able to handle this thing here. Okay?
The authorize annotation is going to provide authorization to which role?
Okay, good question. So, as I said, we're just going to use authorize. So right now, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter which role you're a part of. It just matters that are you logged in, yes or no. If yes, it's going to go. If no, it's not going to give. Next time that we talk about security, we're going to be talking about identity framework security in 2 weeks. We're gonna talk about that. Now again, if you want to get ahead of the game, you can go to the very last video of chapter 12, and I go through that. I distill that exactly what you have to do to get roles already. But again, right now, you either have access or you don't have. You are either logged in or you are not logged in. If you are logged in, you have access. If you're not, you don't. Okay? Now we're gonna build our controller account in our login action in view as well. Okay? But let's just mark down the places that we're gonna be locking down. So we're gonna lock down. We did that with list already. We're gonna do with marked shipped, and then it's also asking us to do with the entire admin controller. So we're going to go to the admin controller, and authorized can be used in action level, which is what we are doing now. List is an action, marked as ship is an action, or we can do in a controller level. So we can go to the very top of the controller here, and we can say authorize. Just have to add the namespace there. Now, what is happening here? All actions underneath that controller, they are all authorized. They are all flagged as authorized. So instead of flagged one by one, you can flag the entire controller as authorized only. Okay? Great. Okay, so let's start creating our accounts. Let's see here, just to follow through with this. So we lock them down. We're going to create our account controller. So let's do that.
So for using this authorized annotation, we don't need any namespace, separate namespace.
We just did. Actually, I may have done a little bit too quick. When I added right here, authorize, I had to add this authorization namespace. Okay? Okay, so we're going to create this controller. Again, we're going to put together how we can log into the system. So we're going to create the controller there. So controllers, add class. I'm going to call this account controller. By the way, all source codes, they'll be all open by the end of the class. Okay, so account controller. Account controller needs to inherit from controller. And I have to add the namespace. Just have a look here. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so let's go straight to our login action. Let's go straight to that. So let's go public, view results, login, and I'm going to return a view. Okay, to do that, what do I have to do next now? Let's create the view, which will be called what? Login. Now, it will be located where?
You need to create a new account.
A new folder called account. Perfect. So again, views, adds, new folder. I'm going to call this account. Okay. And then inside of it, I'm going to call I'm going to create a new view called login. I'm going to get rid of everything that is there, and I'm just going to give it a try and see login. Let's give this a try. Let's see if we get to this. After that redirect, we have created the controller, we have created the action, and we have created the view. Okay, so if I try to go order list, see, it goes to this place here. Now, it's having the same layout as the original one because it's using the default one. So I think that if I go to shared, there is an admin layout. I'm just going to do this. I'm going to set another layout here. I'm going to say at layout equals to, and that's admin layout. I'm just going to change the layout to a simpler one that doesn't look like the front end. Okay, so it is redirecting to the correct place. That's fine. Now, of course, we need to do what?
Form.
We need to do a form that will ask for what?
Login, password.
Login and password, username, password, name and passwords, however you want to call it. I'm going to go with a very simple form. I'm not going to go with the very beautiful bootstrap yet. I just want to put some very simple markup here. Okay, so let's do this. So let's go form ASP-action. What can we do with in terms of action here? What should we call it? What should we call it? So let's call it, I don't know, let's call it login. I mean, we have a login to get, to load. Let's have a post for login. So let's call this login. Methods will be a post. Inside the post, we're going to have the username, the password, and what else? A submit button. So let's go one by one. Let's do ASP, sorry, not ASP. Let's do input. Let's do this name. Input, I'm going to say, okay, can I say ASP-4? Can I say that here? Can I say ASP4? For these inputs? I don't have a model. So yeah, I cannot. Okay, so I cannot use that. So I have to give it a name. I'm just going to call name. And, well, I'm going to give it a type as well. This is just an input. Oh, text, sorry. It's just a text, and I'm going to break the line, and I'm going to say password. I'm going to say, again, input, name, I'm going to say password, and I'm going to say type as well, equals to text.
Type should be
Yeah, it should be password. Okay, and then I'm going to have a button, a submit button. Type equals to submit, and then this will be, let's say, login. Okay, so again, a very simple form here. What's next? Where do we go from here?
Controller.
Let's go to the controller to do what? The action, the login action. So let's go to our admin control, not admin, account controller. So let's do the action here. So let's go public. Let's do view results for now. But you're gonna change this. You're gonna change this a lot in a second. Now, this is HTTP post. What else? What else are you gonna change with the signature here? What else are we changing? Should we change?
You're gonna take the name and the password in?
Yep. We're gonna take the name and password in. We're gonna have them as incoming parameters. Okay. So let's do this. Let's have string name, string password. By the way, the book does this in a slightly different way. I'm starting like this, but I will be enhance this in a second. Okay? Okay, so remember, they have to match the spelling, but not the casing. Okay, so it's okay to have name here with capital N and here we have lowercase. That's fine, as long as they spell the same way, okay? Okay, so now we have to do a few things here. First is that we have to use a few classes, 2 classes actually, a user manager and a sign-in manager, to be able to, 1, check if the user exists, and 2, check if the password is correct. So again, we're going to be using 2 classes, one to check if the user exists, another one to check if the password is valid, okay? Now, as usual, in any form, it is best practice to check if the model state is valid. So I'm going to do this here. I'm going to say if model state dot is valid, just to make sure that we are considering the required fields. We don't care too much about that right now, but let's keep it like that to comply with a standard form, the way that you should check for the state in a form. So if the form is valid, let's check if the user exists, okay? Now I'm going to refer back here to this piece of codes just to recall how that is put together. Okay, is it the one? No. Account controller, what is that? Okay. Okay, so controller, account controller. Okay, here we have our login, the result, and our login. Yes, okay. So let me get this one here. Okay, so very similar to what was done in the seed data, in the identity seeds. If you look at the models, if you go to identity seed data, very similar to what was done here. I'm trying to locate the user. I'm trying to find out if the user exists. So here, I'm using the identity user, and I'm calling the find name asynchronous. I'm doing the same thing here. Now, I'm going to use name here, the name coming from the parameter here. I'm going to do this. Now, we're going to need to add a few namespaces. So let's add the one for identity user. So Microsoft ASP.NET Core.Identity. It's right at the top there. And then we have to add, I think, user manager. Well, we have to create this guy here. But before we take care of this guy, I want to take care of the awaits. Remember what I said? Whenever we use an asynchronous method, what is it that we have to do with the method that is written inside? What do we have to do with this login here? We have to flag it as public async. Okay? Now, with actions, it's a little bit more involving, because not only we have to do this, but we have to leverage, we have to use something called task. We have to use a task class to, and again, the reason why we have to do this is because this is a special type of method. This is an action method. So we're going to have to use something called a task. This has to return a task. This task is what goes in memory. Now, again, why is that we have to use this here, but not in our identity seeds? Well, because in our identity seeds, this is just a regular method. This is not in action. Now, with actions, they are a little bit more complex, let's put it this way. So we have to use this special class to be able to manage this asynchronous communication with the application, okay? So, to be honest, not much has changed here. Just keep your focus on the fact that we are still returning a view result, even though it's masked, it's inside a task. But what we really care is about this result here. Again, we are using this, and this, and this, await, async, and task because of this asynchronous method here. Just that, okay? Again, in the context of actions, we need to use not only async, but we need to put and flag the, not flag, we need to have the return type of the action, not just as view results, but as task, the type of view results, okay? Again, a little bit more complicated, but, well, not that much. Let me give it a pause here to see if there are, again, a lot of little pieces of code. You're gonna have a chance to do some coding as well, but a little bit later today. Any questions so far? I still have to get to this part here, but at this point, anything comes to mind? Again, we're just finding the user here, okay? Just trying to locate the user. Now, here's what we have. Actually, here's what we don't have yet. We don't have this user manager yet. It's complaining that, okay, you are using this user manager, but where are you declaring it? Well, we have not declared it yet. We're going to have to use, and now we're going to use dependency injection to be able to create not only this user manager, but also the sign-in manager. One thing to keep in mind, user manager, again, it's supposed to be used to retrieve, to find user, to create user, to update user, to delete user. But it does not, user manager does not take care of validating passwords. It does not take care of, oh, is the password of this user secret123? It does not provide that service. You're going to have to use another object, another class, to perform password validation for us. But let's focus on this for a second. So we're going to have to declare, see, we have user manager here. If we look at our identity seeds, we had the user manager there. So we have to declare this user manager. We're going to declare that as a private field, a private object, okay? So again, the same thing as we did in the identity seed, we are declaring it here. Now, we need to create it. To create it, we could use something like this, but let's actually use, dependency injection. So we're going to create this by using dependency injection. When we talk about dependency injection, what is it that we usually need to create to insert a dependency injection here? What is it that we need to have here? Dependency injection usually is available via what? Let's have a look at another controller here. See? What is this?
Constructor.
Via constructor. So we need to have a constructor for our account controller. So we're going to have something like this. Public account controller. We're going to have a parameter here, and we're going to say, now, our parameter, again, it will be just the type of that one up there. We're going to say user mgr, let's say, user manager, and we're going to set user manager, which is the private, to this one that comes from the controller. So again, who's providing this to us? MVC. MVC is doing that via the identity service that we have added to our application. The identity service is the one that knows how to create this guy here. And MVC is the one that is creating that for us, okay? So, again, we use user manager to be able to find the user. If we find the user, we check the password. If we don't find, well, we come back. We come back and we stay in the same view. So let's do this test here. So let's say if user different from null. So if the user exists, then we verify the password. We check the password then. Now, for the passwords, we need to use another class. Look, now we have to use something called sign-in manager. As I said, the user manager does not provide methods and services to check passwords. Why is that? I don't know, it was designed like that. You have user manager to be able to manage user details except password validation. I think that password validation is more involving, and again, whoever designed the framework decided to put that as a separate class, as a separate object. So we have been introduced to this for the first time now. We're going to have to create something called a sign-in manager. Very similar to what we did with user manager, we're going to have a sign-in manager, private one, very similar syntax to the user manager, but it's called a sign-in manager, capital S. The same way as we created user manager by using dependency injection, we're going to be using dependency injection again to create our sign-in manager. We're going to do this. We're going to have a second parameter here in the constructor. We're going to call this sign-in MGR. And we're going to say sign-in manager equals to this one here. So again, we are leveraging for both objects here, we are leveraging dependency injection provided by MVC, provided by .NET Core, to set the user manager, to set the sign-in manager. Okay? So now we have a sign-in manager. We need the password here. The password is called password. So this is the field right here. Sorry, the property. These two fields, these two properties here, one is persistent. To be honest, I'm not exactly sure what is this parameter about. The second one is about lockout. If you put the wrong password, it locks down the system. It doesn't allow you to try it again. We're not going to be locking the system down if we put the wrong passwords. We don't want to do that. And yeah, this one here, let me see, what is it? Flag indicating whether the sign-in cookie should be persistent after the browser is closed. Well, I guess that it should log out if you close the browser. Anyway, the important thing here is that this method, password sign-in async, it's also an asynchronous method, you see? It's checking if the password provided matches this user. If the password of this user is a match with this password. If it is, succeed as a Boolean. If it is, then we're going to redirect to, let's say, to the order list, okay? So if it succeeds, we're going to say return, redirect, and I'm just going to say redirect to /order /list. I'm just going to put it like that for now. I will address in a second why this is given an error. Now, once we do this, the code exits this method and redirects to this location here that we want to go after we try and we succeed. However, if any one of these is not successful, we need to stay in the same place. We need to say, and hopefully we can add some validation that adds some message there, but the point is that if the model is not valid, or if the user could not be found, or if the passwords failed, at the end of all of this, I'm going to say return view. So either we redirect after a successful attempt, or we stick to the same view after one of those have failed. If any one of those fail, it returns to the view. If this is correct, this is correct, this is correct, this is true, 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 we redirect. We redirect to where I was going before. I was trying to reach order list. Now, I'm making this fixed here. We're going to make this dynamic at some point soon. But just want to to have a quick check here. Again, overcomplicated? Tell me. Give me some inputs. Does it make sense or not? What was the muddiest aspect of this so far? Anyone?
It's like everything way too much for us. We don't know the logic.
Okay, so which aspect of the logic is confusing? Any particular aspects? Again, I'm just talking.
So in fact, after you log in,
Yep.
you get a token.
Behind the scenes, yes. Yes, you got a token.
In the browser session.
In the cookies, yes. You got a token that it's telling, okay, because actually this line here, it not only checks if the password is correct, but it does that work for us behind the scenes. It gets a token, it sets that token to the cookie. And again, now you are in a session. You are logged in the application. Okay, after you call that method. Okay. Okay, but there is one point that I want to address. I want to address that red squiggly line over there. The reason why it's saying that is complaining because I'm using a view result here. So I need to use something a little bit more generic than a view result. If I'm using a view result, the only thing that this login should be able to return are views. And I may want to redirect to another place like this. Now, for me to be able to use redirect or view, I need to use either iAction result. See, it's already gone, the error. Because redirect inherits from iAction results. Or I could also use, again, it's just another class. I can use action results directly. Action results is the parent of both view, the types that are returned by view results, and redirect result. You see, the type of that returns redirect is redirect results. The type of view is view results. So if I go more generic, like iAction result or action results, it's okay. I cannot do just a view result over there. Again, different things that you can return from an action. You can return a view, you can return a redirect. Just 2 examples here. You can return a few other things, but for now, we're just going to focus on both of those. Let's see, let's give this a try here. Okay, so I'm going to go order list. It goes here. I've typed in this many times, so it knows already. I'm going to try to log in. And now I get redirected to where I was before, okay? To where I wanted to be. Now, here's what I'd like to demonstrate. I'd like to address next. You're going to see the video set that I put together. It shows a few different options here. What I want to show is I want to convert this name and password into a class. I want to create what it's called a view model class. So when we're dealing with our application, we have a few models here. We have, let me see here. See, we have order, we have products. Those types of classes, they are called domain classes. Domain class is a class that is related to the business of the application. We are dealing with an e-commerce application. We have products, we have orders, we have other things that are related to the business of the application. However, we may have the need to use some classes that exist just for the purpose of communicating back and forth between the view and the controller and the view. This type of class, it's just a support class. We will call this type of class a view model. It's a model, it's a class, but the only purpose of this class is to transfer information between the controller and the view, and from the view to the controller back. So I wanted to again cover this topic of what is a view model. Well, let's convert these two parameters here into a new model. Let's create a new model here. We're going to create a model called login model that has 2 properties, a name and a password. So you're going to see how we can convert. Yes, this is correct, this works, fine. However, we can convert this into a model. So let's do that. If we can make it more complicated, why not?
It's already complicated.
No, actually, this makes it, I think that what this gives is a better understanding of what is model binding, how this really works behind the scenes. So we're going to do this. We already have a folder called view models. Again, this folder is not required. It's just a way to organize view models together. View models, again, what are they? They are supporting classes that allow us to implement things a little bit better in our application. They are not main models. They are not domain models. They are just, again, view models. Models that have the purpose of carrying information back and forth between controller and views. So let's add one here. Let's add one called login model. Let's add class. I'm going to call this login model. Our login model will be very simple. We're just going to have a property, a string property called name. Going to have another property called password. That's it, very simple one. Cannot be simpler than that. What we're going to do with that is this. In our login view, we're going to tie our login to that model. So we're going to say at model, login model. Now, because I have a model here, I can do this. I can do ASP-4, and I can put name here. Because now I have a model there that has a name property. And I can also say ASP-4 password. Okay, so again, we are just changing to link to that model. Now, our login action, instead of using 2 parameters, we're going to have 1 parameter, which is the model. We're going to just return this model here. Because now our view is tied together, is bounded to a model. So we're going to say here, we're going to just say login model, and we need to add the namespace. Okay, view models here. So again, we just added the view models namespace. We're going to call this lowercase login model. And now I can retrieve name and passwords from this model. I can say login model dot name and login model dot password. And this is what a model view is, a way that you can create classes just to support your development, to support your application. Can you imagine if you have a form with 10 fields? You'd have to pass 10 parameters here. Is it better to have one single class that you can pass and all properties are inside that class? Well, I tend to think so. Again, this will work just like that. Enough? What more? Again, at this part of the model, of the view model, does that make sense? Again, login model that we just created is not a domain model. It's a class, but it's just a supporting class. Its only purpose is to transfer information from the view to the model, from the view to the controller, from the controller to the view. That's it. Just a supporting class. Okay. Okay, great. So let me see here one thing. Let's go for our 10 minutes. And then once we get back, we'll see. 10 minutes.